Time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. And joining us tonight, Henry Winter and John Cross, two of the sharpest minds in the industry. We'll be speaking to them very, very shortly indeed. Don't raise your eyebrows at me, Henry, you know it. Let's run you through the back pages as they stand. The back page of The Guardian has the headline, "Now for Slovakia, get behind us, please, Southgate," as he faces Foden dilemma, with Phil Foden leaving the England camp today. The image of George Mikhtauti celebrating his penalty as Georgia stunned Portugal to reach the last 16. By the way, he's the tournament top scorer right now as well, Mikhtauti. Back page of the Mail looks like this. Samuel Motpole writing, "End game for Southgate. England boss believes fans have turned against him. Foden flies home, but he'll be back for Sunday." And on the inside pages of the Telegraph, Jason Burt writes, "Beer cups and criticism. Being England manager really is the impossible job." And Matt Law's piece is the headline, "If Southgate plans to walk after the Euros, he should announce it." Welcome once again to Henry and to John. OK, well, look, you know, we've got plenty of lines coming out of the England camp, and obviously the newest one today is regarding Phil Foden. So let's have a look at the back page of the Mail. It is the picture there, Foden flying home, but don't worry, he'll be back on Sunday, says the Mail. We'll come to the headline in a moment. Henry, we've had this before in major tournaments with England, players leaving the camp midway through. This feels like it's perhaps not as serious as the previous cases that we've had.
No, and everyone wishes Phil Foden and his partner well. I think it's their third child, so you know, a momentous moment for him. And so, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not exactly as if he's coming back from the other side of the world. We had that in 2002 with players going in and out of Japan, and it was crazy. But for this, you know, it's a short hop back, and you wish them well. I'm sure he'll be back in good time. I don't think it necessarily affects Southgate's tactical choices for Sunday.
What do you think, John? I mean, you know, Phil Foden leaving the camp, in a way, does that help slightly unblock things, maybe force Southgate's hand, if maybe he can make a case now for Phil Foden not to be included, and maybe he can perhaps take the hand off the handbrake slightly, or is that maybe wishful thinking for England fans?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd be ever so surprised if Phil Foden loses his place for Sunday. As Henry rightly sort of says, it's not as if it's the other side of the world. And frankly, for those of us in Germany and indeed the England squad, it feels like actually travelling home to Manchester for the birth of his third child is probably an easier journey than some of the German trains and some of the planes that England have probably had to catch as well, to be perfectly honest with you. So I reckon he might even be back, you know, for the build-up and the training in the build-up now for what we know will be Slovakia on Sunday. And I do also think that Foden played, I thought, really well. I thought he was England's arguably best player along with Mark Gay last night. Still trying to almost find that formula, isn't he, Gareth Southgate? And also trying to unlock the best out of Phil Foden. I mean, I just think when you've got that talent, Bellingham and Foden, Bellingham shone in the first game, was absolutely magnificent. You can't do it every single game, and they're going to have to take it in turns. I just think maybe it's a feel-good story that Phil Foden comes back celebrating the birth of his third child, God willing, and basically, you know, the guys find something good, positive to maybe lift some performances and lift morale a little bit, because it just feels a little bit lacking in confidence and spark. So the England fans have been singing all tournament long, haven't they, about Phil Foden and giving them a spark to sort of Dancing in the Dark by Bruce Springsteen. I tell you what, maybe Phil Foden will come back with a bit of a spark and a spring in his step. Let's hope so.
It's a lovely romantic tale. I'm buying it, John. Henry, if you look at the back page of John's paper, The Mirror, it doesn't feel like there's much romance between the England fans and Gareth Southgate. Boo me, back them. Southgate OK to take flack from fans, but he wants support for his players. Is Gareth Southgate right now, you know, the one who is, you know, taking all the pressure, all the comments, beer cups being thrown at him, etc., etc.? Is that the right dynamic for just getting on with the tournament right now?
It's a classic back page that crosses got there in terms of the sort of the downside of sport and the plus side. I'm just surprised the Phil Foden story in the Mirror hasn't got a sort of time to deliver headline on it, because that's also what England need as well, and the pressure on Southgate. I mean, Crossy and I were in that press conference on last night, wasn't it? And I thought Southgate handled it well, because he was obviously hurt. He's a proud, patriotic individual, and to go over, it showed a bit of boldness and a bit of courage to go, because he knew that he was going to get a hostile reception when he walked over to that section of the stadium. And, there were jeers. There's also a rather unpleasant chant about him, which a few of them are singing, which fortunately wasn't picked up by the microphones. And so there is that sort of sense of hostility. There's a frustration amongst the fans. Crossy and I sort of talked to them a lot going in and out of grounds. And the frustration is, you see these fabulous players who do so much great things for their club, and they're echoes of the golden generation here. You just look at this squad and you see European champions, you see treble winners, you see FA Cup winners, you see fabulous young talents coming through, and they're just not gelling. There isn't a blend there. And there is that frustration, and that's spilling out. We know that social media is a toxic place. You can sort of broaden it. Is the country a slightly angry place at the moment? Fans have sacrificed a lot. Crossy mentions rightly the trains issues, the cost of coming out here, and the cost of living crisis. There's a lot. Southgate, in a way, has walked into a perfect storm, and I think he will definitely walk away after this tournament. It's always been, Crossy and I have had this conversation many times, it's always been, for me, it's been Berlin or bust for Southgate to get that trophy. That you look at these players and they do have a trophy in them, and that's why there is that frustration from the players, from the fans. But at the end of the first half, there were boos. At full time, there were boos and the jeers and a couple of cups thrown at Southgate. That is just not what is going to help England at the moment. The fans yesterday, their support, particularly in the second half with that 20-minute song, that they just lifted the players, tried to lift the players. The majority, 99.9% of the fans were absolutely brilliant, but just a few of them have let them down. And just, David, coming back quickly to your general point, I thought Southgate handled it well, because the good managers take the heat on themselves. He's basically come out and said, listen, have a go at me effectively, don't have a go at the players, because there's some young players in there who haven't actually been in the eye of this sort of storm before. Having said that, and Crossy and I have been doing this for a long time, this is nothing compared to some of the storms and the criticism that England players, England camps have had before. This is all football related. This is all, is the balance of the team right? How do you find the right partner for Declan Rice? I assume it'll be Kobbie Mainoo on Sunday. This is not about WAGs. This is not about player strike. This is not about dentist chairs. I mean, Southgate's first game that he played for England, or certainly he was in the squad for England, was Oslo away in '95, when Terry Venables, the manager, a manager that he hugely had admired, the late great Terry Venables, was mocked up on the front page of one newspaper with his head in a noose. It's a different atmosphere now. There is criticism now. There is pressure on the players and on Southgate, but I'm afraid it doesn't actually compare to some of the heat in previous years.
Yeah, it's very important context. In fact, you know what? That takes me in terms of Southgate and his position and how he's feeling right now, and how he's handling all of these press conferences, etc. Henry, in the Daily Telegraph, John, Matt Law's piece is entitled "If Southgate plans to walk after Euros, he should announce it." It's basically one of the paragraphs says this: the narrative around Southgate has already become a sideshow. The only way to change that would be for him to tell the public that the knockout phase of the Euros, however long it lasts, will be his last hurrah. What do you think?
I love Matt, one of my great pals, but I don't agree with him at all on this one. It's all about debate, isn't it? I just feel as soon as players know in any circumstance that basically a manager's going, they lose their focus. And whether that's at club level with 6 months to go with Jurgen Klopp, or whether that's Gareth Southgate with hopefully 4 games to come, I think there's a real danger there that basically all of a sudden players lose that bit of focus. Listen, I totally agree with Henry. I do think that the way that Gareth Southgate was talking, we actually saw him after the sort of the official press conference and what have you, and had a chat, and he was making it pretty clear that he now accepts that he's almost now the problem for the fans. He said, blame me, shout at me. He was incredibly dignified, but I've never seen him so flat. honestly. Your heart goes out to him. He's such a decent human being, such a good man. And honestly, in the 8 years that he's been in charge, I've covered them for so many years at the Mirror now, honestly, it's been revolutionary. Yes, with this group of players, should they have done more? Could they have done more? Of course. And the fans are frustrated because they see attacking talents. As Henry rightly points out, their support in the stadium was sensational, so loud, it was brilliant. They were fabulous around the streets of Cologne. Honestly, they were great. They gave the players such a lift. But they have turned on Southgate. And I always think there's sort of a golden rule in football. Whenever you lose the fans, I think it's so rare that a manager can really turn them back. I tell you, there's a great example in the mid-noughties that Sir Alex Ferguson almost did that. United fans were beginning to lose faith, and my God, he'd sort of kind of turned it around and then some, didn't he? But I do think that so rarely happens. I do think that Southgate, I think, probably thinks it's a tournament too far. There's been so many critics. It's my 13th tournament. I've never known so many voices, so many opinions. We're almost become the media, sort of kind of almost reporting on the media because there's so many voices within the media, former players, whatever it might be, TV, radio, podcasts. And I just think he's found it wearing. I think he's found it too much. I think England went into the tournament as pre-tournament favourites, but they had a bad, preparation. They had injuries, lots of things to contend with, not a chance to try out things in friendlies. It's all combined, I think, to give England, not the greatest preparation. But I do still think they're in there fighting. They might just lift it again against Slovakia. I wish they'd got Holland, because I think Holland would have come out to play a bit more and England might have just lifted that a little bit. I think Southgate deserves so much credit. He deserves, I think in 10 years, we'll look back and see what an incredible, magnificent job he did, from lifting a team from their all-time low against Iceland into a position where they are genuine contenders now. And I'm sorry, but I get a little bit sick and tired of kind of some former players getting a little bit too much sort of kind of tucked in when they actually didn't do anything with England themselves and wasted opportunities. So I think he deserves a bit more respect, and I really hope that the fans kind of back him and back the team for the rest of the tournament, as Gareth Southgate has urged them to do.
Well, we are where we are with this tournament. England are through as group winners. They face Slovakia in the kinder side of the draw. So this last 16 game, Henry, do you think there will be changes? I mean, Luke Shaw has declared himself fit. Kobbie Mainoo did well when he came on for Conor Gallagher. Where do you think those changes might occur for Gareth Southgate?
Well, Luke Shaw has declared himself fit. I'd like to hear the medical department declare himself fit, and I'd like to hear Manchester United's medical department declare himself fit. He's not played since the 18th of February at Luton Town. I mean, Luke Shaw is such an important player for England in terms of that balance, scored in the last final. He's a really important player. Phil Foden, you see more of Phil Foden, who I agree with John has been one of England's better players. But Phil Foden will be able to drift inside more and be that effective number 10 as he is with Manchester City if he's got Luke Shaw bombing down the left outside him and providing that width and that left foot as well. England are a little bit like a sort of kid's bike with only a stabiliser on one side. They do sort of slightly sort of tip over. So Luke Shaw being fit, but he can't be fit. He absolutely can't. He hasn't kicked a ball in anger in 4 and a bit months. So, I mean, maybe it's, the Slovakia have got pace out wide, but so have the Dutch. So he might sort of prefer that. But how long are we actually going to see him in a game? And he's got that hamstring. You don't want to see him have a relapse on that. So, look, there's a gamble there, but this is it's absolutely England have to go for it now. I think that if Shaw comes in, then that gives them a little bit of balance. It's such a risk, Shaw coming in. I'm amazed we're even having this conversation 4 months without kicking a ball in anger. But Kobbie Mainoo definitely has to come in. I mean, Conor Gallagher, I know John's a big fan of his. I like him. I think he's a good Premier League level player, but I don't think he's elite level. And I think that Slovenia took one look at him and thought, right, let's press him. That will be the trigger. The moment he gets the ball, and they turned it over and then they countered. And I think with Kobbie Mainoo, he's at ease in possession. He's passing. He plays with his head up. He's used to pressure playing for Manchester United. We've seen he's got a goal threat this season. We saw it at Molineux. We saw it at Wembley. So I would play him alongside Declan Rice. I think Cole Palmer, when he came on, Southgate's been talking about this sort of unusual, difficult atmosphere, environment around the players at the moment. Cole Palmer, you've seen him. Nothing phases him. He gets the ball. He's got a trick. He takes players on. He cuts inside. You can have an argument about England would effectively be playing with 3 number 10s, but Germany do it. And if you've got intelligent players, they can interchange like that. I think it would be a bit unfortunate on Bukayo Saka, and I'm sure Crossy will defend Bukayo Saka's. He's actually had a pretty decent tournament. He's got that pace more than Palmer, but I just think Cole Palmer just brings that sort of ice cold, clinical, and also enjoyment of the game. And I think England need that. There's a whole party going on here. On the pitches, when you saw the Georgians tonight, off the pitches, in the fan zones. And England, the fans have certainly joined the party, but England themselves have got to join the party. They've got to entertain, they've got to attack, they've got to be more on the front foot, because England's strengths are in those attacking areas. And I would love to see Cole Palmer given a chance.
Well, I guess we'll find out an hour before kick-off on Sunday. Guys, for the moment, thank you very much indeed. We're going to take a little break, other side of which we'll look at more of the back pages, including this in The Guardian, as Georgia stunned Portugal, who were already through, to reach the last 16. You're watching Back Pages tonight. Welcome back to Henry Winter, football broadcaster and writer, and the Mirror's chief football writer, John Cross. OK, we talked about England, but we'll reflect a little bit more on England in a moment. But one of the real kind of joyful stories of this tournament, guys, Georgia, who were bottom of the group heading into the last round of fixtures, but beat Portugal 2-0, and they've qualified for the last 16 as one of the best third-place teams. This is in The Guardian, and, it is one of those stories we love seeing, that a team playing in their tournament debut and really kind of like just exploding onto the tournament like this. That's Mikitarian, who scored his penalty to seal the win. John, this is a great story, isn't it? And Georgia are proving that, they might be ranked, 70-odd in the world, but, against an understrength Portugal side who'd already through, still, they did what they were set out to do and managed to get through to the last 16, defying all expectations.
David, I hate to be a killjoy here, but I think the reason that we love Georgia and what they've done here is because so far the Euros has been a bit of a tournament lacking in stories, in romance. And I really don't like the third qualifier format of it. I realise, obviously, in a sort of a classic draw scenario, the figures don't make up, and you sort of have to make up other teams from other groups. But I like the jeopardy of it all. And so you know what you're playing for. And Georgia's a great story because they went into this game knowing exactly what they had to do. It's a one-off game. It's a result. It's a great story. That's exactly what we've been lacking, frankly, in the knockout round so far, because it is bizarre that teams can go through with 3 points and work out on goal difference by virtue of the third place. I think it actually undermines the group system and takes away a bit of that jeopardy, a bit of that fun. And I do think it's something that UEFA have to look at it. Honestly, it's a bit pathetic that you can get through with 1 win under your belt and that's it. I don't think that should be a benchmark, really. I think Georgia should be a great story, and it is a great story. And I think it's wonderful that they've made this impression. But we need more of those. You either expand it and make it 32 into 16, or you do away with this halfway house. Honestly, I do. Now we're into the knockout stages, we'll get more Georgia stories. We'll get more upsets. We'll get more surprises, hopefully. And that's exactly what this tournament needs. It's been lacking in Georgia so far. So I love the fact that they brought the party to town, really, in the Euros. I think it's a great story and exactly what the tournament needs.
Henry, to come to you, Georgia, one of the stories. They face Spain next, of course, in the last 16. Austria have been an excellent story, topping their group, but no one thought that they would. My wife's got them in the sweepstakes. She's extremely excited about that right now. Wonder how long that will last. And England in that half of the draw. Slovakia next, Switzerland or Italy in the quarterfinals, and potentially Romania, Netherlands, Austria or Turkey. This does sit up now, doesn't it, for England? But where are the threats in that side of the draw?
Well, the threats are all over, and that's the joy of this. I agree with Crossy. The third place thing is politics and money. It's about expanding the tournament, making more money for UEFA. It's about providing a safety net for national associations, which then bolster the power brokers at UEFA. We've seen it with FIFA with the World Cup in 2 years' time. That's the way it's going. And the more American owners you get coming into English football, I think Cross's love of jeopardy and what English football has been built on, that sporting jeopardy, that is going to be eroded. But that's a whole another debate. But yeah, I think it's fantastic. You look at the Georgians, and obviously they're well organised, but there's something that's really fueling them, whether it's national pride, whether it's a camaraderie, they've sort of grown up together, whether it's what their issues that their country has gone through. There is that huge pride, that huge adrenaline. Again, they were playing an understrength team, as you rightly pointed out, but still, it's fantastic to see. And again, this is one of the frustrations for the England fans, and not that everything comes back to England, but they look at these teams and they say, well, hang on a sec, we've got these great players who are better individually, technically in the clubs they play for than these. Why aren't they playing with that exuberance, that sort of urgency, that sort of pride as well? So I think that, again, sort of makes some of them focus on Southgate. Is it Southgate or is it the individuals? So look, Georgia, it's fantastic. The Turks as well. The Turks been terrific in this tournament as well. I mean, I slightly disagree with Crossy. I think it's been a fabulous tournament. I mean, I take the point that it's going to be the shootouts in the knockout stages are going to provide so much drama, but I think it's been a brilliant tournament on and off the pitch. I mean, okay, there've been some Serb hooligans floating around, but it's been pretty much sort of riot-free or hoolie-free, and it's just, and even the sun's come out to play. So I think it's been classic, one of the best tournaments I've been to, certainly.
Yeah, let's hope that we continue in that direction. Really, really briefly, John, Emma Raducanu through in Eastbourne. In fact, 3 British women into the quarterfinals for the first time since the late 1970s at Eastbourne. And this was a big win over Jessica Pegula, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Her first win over top 10 player in this particular format. And it's brilliant, actually, to see and hear her talking with such passion and emotion. I love Emma Raducanu. Obviously, we're not, far away, as the strapline there says. Wimbledon starts on Monday. Love to see Emma Raducanu come back and be at her absolute best for the championships next week. I think that'd be a great British sporting story. And I do think she's absolutely fantastic when she plays well, and she's such an entertaining player. Can't wait for that. So I think that's a fantastic morale-boosting win. And we shouldn't overlook, the other two are finding a little bit of form.
Katie Bolter and Harriet Dart are the other two. So we're going to have to leave it there, guys. Apologies, but thank you so much for your company this evening. We're going to be talking about Gareth Southgate in just a couple of minutes' time. Stay with us.